Oh, you should see their faces right now. The panic, the cold sweats at 3 a.m., the frantic phone calls that go straight to voicemail. Because the one person they thought would save them, the one person who always cleaned up their messes, the spiritual advisor they ran to every time their darkness caught up with them, just looked them dead in the eye and said something that shattered their entire world. Return what you took from them. 5 words, that's all it took. 5 words to turn their sanctuary into a courtroom, their healer into a judge, their safe space into a mirror they can't escape. And now, oh now, they're learning what it feels like when the universe stops offering extensions on debts that were never meant to be forgiven in the first place. Let's rewind for a second, because you need to understand the full picture here. These people, these beautiful masks of light and love, they've been running to their spiritual advisor for years. Every time their conscience whispered too loud, every time their victims started healing too fast, every time the energy they stole started rotting in their hands, they'd book an appointment. They'd sit in that sacred space, light their candles, burn their sage, and spill their carefully edited version of events. They'd cry about how hard life has been, how misunderstood they are, how they're just trying to protect their peace. And their advisor, patient and kind, would cleanse them, would guide them, would send them home with crystals and affirmations and rituals designed to clear negativity. But here's what they never told their healer. They never mentioned your name. They never mentioned the person they've been draining for years, the energy they've been stealing while you slept, the opportunities they cursed while smiling in your face, the peace they shattered while pretending to pray for you, the boundaries they violated while claiming they were the victim, the reputation they destroyed in whispered conversations disguised as concern. They took and took and took, thinking the universe was a bottomless well, thinking their healer's protection was a license to keep hunting, thinking as long as they showed up with the right words and the right offerings, they could keep their hands dirty and their aura clean. They thought they found the perfect system. Steal from you, cleanse with their advisor, repeat. A spiritual money laundering operation where your pain was their profit and their healer was their unwitting accomplice. But here's the thing about real healers, real practitioners, real people who actually walk in truth and not just talk about it. They see. Maybe not immediately, maybe not in the first session or the 5th or the 15th, but energy doesn't lie. Patterns don't lie. And when someone keeps coming back to be cleansed of the same darkness, when someone keeps needing protection from the same attacks, when someone's aura keeps getting heavier no matter how much work is done, a real healer starts asking different questions. And your enemies, they got comfortable. They got sloppy. They started revealing too much. A name dropped here, a situation described there, details that didn't add up, timelines that exposed their lies. And slowly, like pieces of a puzzle assembling themselves, their healers started seeing the truth. The moment of reckoning came quietly, as these things often do. They showed up for their regular appointment, probably complaining about you again, probably spinning some story about how you're sending them negativity, how you're blocking their blessings, how they need protection from your energy. And their advisor listened, really listened. Not with sympathy this time, but with recognition. Because finally, after all this time, after all these sessions, after all these cleanings and clearings and protections, the pattern became undeniable. These people weren't victims of attack. They were architects of theft. They weren't defending themselves from your darkness. They were trying to hide from the light of consequences. And in that moment, everything shifted. The temperature in the room changed. The energy went from warm to Arctic, and their healer, the person they'd been using as their spiritual shield, looked at them with eyes that suddenly saw everything. Return what you took from them. The words hung in the air like a verdict that had been waiting years to be delivered. Not a suggestion, not a recommendation, not a gentle nudge toward growth. A command, an ultimatum, a line drawn in spiritual sand that carried the weight of cosmic law. And they tried to deflect, tried to explain, tried to twist the narrative one more time. But their healer wasn't interested in their stories anymore. Because real practitioners don't just see auras, they see timelines. They see cause and effect. They see the threads that connect a person's current suffering to their past actions. And what their advisor saw in them wasn't someone under spiritual attack. It was someone who'd been the attack all along. Someone who'd taken your peace and called it their breakthrough. Someone who'd stolen your opportunities and called it manifestation. Someone who'd drained your energy and called it self-care. You're on your own now. 4 more words that collapsed their entire spiritual safety net because their healer didn't just refuse to help them anymore. Their healer withdrew all previous protection. Every cleansing reversed. Every shield dissolved. Every ritual that had been holding back the natural consequences of their actions canceled. It's like watching someone who's been living in a fireproof house suddenly realize the fire department just removed all the protections and left them standing in a structure made of matches. And the flames, your truth, your justice, your energy returning to its rightful owner, those flames have been waiting patiently outside for years. Now there's nothing standing between them and what they've earned. Their advisor didn't curse them, didn't have to, just stopped interfering with the natural spiritual mathematics that says what you take without permission will be taken back with interest. Now here's where it gets beautiful. And by beautiful, I mean cosmically terrifying for them. Because they're not just losing their healer's protection, they're losing their ability to hide from what they've done. See, when someone is actively being shielded by spiritual work, their actions can be obscured, delayed, buffered by the positive energy being directed their way. But the moment that shield drops, everything they've been doing in the shadows gets illuminated all at once. Every whispered lie suddenly echoes back to them at full volume. Every stolen moment of your peace becomes a sleepless night of their panic. Every piece of your energy they took starts burning in their hands like acid, and they can feel it. They're feeling it right now. That creeping sensation that something is watching them, waiting for them, coming for them. And it is. It's called accountability. They're scared to sleep now, and they should be. Because sleep is when the conscious mind stops running interference, when the guilt they've been burying all day comes screaming to the surface in nightmares they can't escape. They dream of you. Not the broken version they tried to create, but the whole version, the healed version, the powerful version that survived everything they threw at it and came out sharper, clearer, more dangerous to their lies than ever before. They dream of moments when they had the chance to stop, to apologize, to make it right, and they chose cruelty instead. They dream of the advisor's face, that look of disappointment and disgust, that moment when someone they trusted to see them as good finally saw them as they actually are. They wake up in cold sweats, reaching for their phone to call the one person who used to make it all go away, and remembering mid-dial that those calls aren't being answered anymore. And it's spreading. Because here's what they didn't count on. Healers talk to other healers. Practitioners share information about people who misuse spiritual work. Not gossip, but warnings. Professional courtesy. The same way doctors flag patients who abuse prescriptions, spiritual workers communicate about people who weaponize their services. So now it's not just their advisor who won't help them. It's becoming a pattern. They try to book with someone new, and something always goes wrong. The appointment gets mysteriously canceled. The practitioner gets a sudden bad feeling and declines. The reading they do get tells them exactly what they don't want to hear. Return what you stole. It's like watching someone who's been banned from every hospital in the city suddenly realize they're bleeding and no one's going to stop it. They created this. They built this cage one stolen piece at a time, and now they're locked inside it with only their guilt for company. Let's talk about what they actually took from you, because this isn't abstract. This isn't metaphorical. These people didn't just hurt your feelings or waste your time. They performed spiritual theft, and that's a different category of violation entirely. They took your creative ideas and presented them as their own, and every success they built on that theft is now rotting from the inside. They took your emotional energy, made you their unpaid therapist, their constant source of validation, and now they're discovering what it feels like to be truly alone with their thoughts. They took your trust and weaponized it, sharing your vulnerabilities with people who use that information against you. They took your reputation and shredded it in rooms you weren't in to defend yourself. And now those same people are starting to see through the lies. They took your time, hours, and days and months of your life you'll never get back, moments you spent building them up while they were secretly tearing you down. But here's the part that's really eating them alive right now. They took your peace, your ability to feel safe, your capacity to trust, your belief that people are fundamentally good. They reached into the softest parts of who you are and twisted them into weapons against you. And they thought, genuinely thought, that as long as they kept their hands washed with sage smoke and their chakras balanced with crystals, that theft wouldn't count. They thought spiritual practice was a cheat code that let them act like monsters and still collect blessings. They thought wrong, because every real tradition, every genuine practice, every authentic spiritual path says the same thing in different words. You cannot steal and call it receiving. You cannot harm and call it healing. You cannot take what isn't freely given and expect the universe to call it fair. And their advisor, finally seeing the full picture, just reminded them of that fundamental truth. Return what you took from them. But how do you return peace once you've shattered it? How do you return time once you've stolen it? How do you return trust once you've weaponized it? How do you return a reputation once you've destroyed it? How do you return energy once you've drained it? How do you return opportunities once you've cursed them? That's the nightmare they're living in now. Because the answer is you can't. Not fully. Not in the way that makes it right. You can apologize. And they won't. Because that would require admitting what they did. You can make amends. And they don't know how. Because they've spent so long lying to themselves, they've forgotten what the truth even looks like. You can change. And they're too proud, too invested in their victim narrative, too terrified of facing the monster in their mirror. So they're stuck in this impossible situation, being commanded to return something they can't return, and knowing that until they at least try, nothing in their life is going to work right again. Watch what's happening to them now. It's subtle at first, the kind of things they can still explain away as coincidence. That job opportunity that was guaranteed suddenly went to someone else. That relationship they were so sure about, suddenly feeling distant and cold. That money they were expecting, mysteriously delayed or disappeared. That health issue they'd been ignoring, suddenly demanding attention. That friend group that used to respect them, suddenly seeing them differently, asking harder questions, creating distance. It's like watching a Jenga tower where someone's been secretly removing pieces for years, and it's finally at that point where even breathing near it makes the whole thing wobble. They feel it. They know something is wrong. But they can't name it, can't face it, can't fix it, because fixing it would mean admitting they broke it in the first place. And their thoughts, oh, their thoughts, are becoming their worst enemies now. Because without their healer to help them manage the guilt, without the spiritual bypass of constant cleansings to make them feel absolved, they're left alone with the full weight of what they've done. Every quiet moment becomes an interrogation. Every time they close their eyes, they see your face. Not accusing, which would almost be easier to dismiss, but just existing, healing, thriving, moving forward without them. And that image haunts them more than any nightmare, because it's proof that you didn't need them, that you survived them, that everything they took from you wasn't essential to your happiness. It was just stolen time and energy that you're now reclaiming. They're realizing they didn't diminish you. They revealed themselves, and that revelation is following them everywhere they go. Let's discuss the spiritual mechanics of what's happening here, because it's important to understand this isn't revenge. This isn't you doing anything to them. This is the natural consequence of interfering with spiritual law. Think of it like gravity. If you throw something up, it comes down. That's not the ground being vengeful, that's just physics. They threw theft and harm and cruelty up into the universe, and now it's coming back down on their heads. Their advisor wasn't holding it up out of kindness. Their advisor was unknowingly holding it up out of incomplete information. The moment the full truth became clear, the moment the healer understood they'd been helping someone avoid consequences rather than genuinely heal, that support had to be withdrawn, not as punishment, but as truth. You cannot heal someone who's actively choosing to harm. You cannot protect someone who's using that protection as a license to attack. You cannot cleanse someone who goes right back out and gets dirty on purpose. You're on your own. Those words are echoing in their skull every single night now. Because being on your own spiritually when you've built your whole life on stolen energy is like being a parasite that suddenly loses its host. They don't know how to generate their own light because they've been feeding off yours for so long. They don't know how to create their own opportunities because they've been stealing or sabotaging yours. They don't know how to fill their own cup because they've been drinking from yours without permission. And now, cut off from their spiritual support system, cut off from the person they were draining, they're experiencing something they've never truly felt before: empty. Not the performative emptiness they'd claim to get sympathy. Real emptiness. The kind that comes from realizing you're a shell of stolen moments and borrowed light with no substance of your own underneath. Their friends are starting to notice something's off. The mask is slipping. The performance is getting harder to maintain. Because when you've been operating on stolen energy, you have this artificial brightness, this fake vitality that people mistake for charisma. But when that source gets cut off, when you're forced to run on your own reserves and you have none, people can see it. They can feel it. The conversations feel more draining. The presence feels more needy. The vibe feels more desperate. And people, even people who don't understand spirituality, can sense when someone's frequency has shifted from giving to taking. They're watching their social circle slowly, subtly, start to pull back. Not because anyone told them to, just because energy doesn't lie and theirs is starting to smell like decay. Here's what they're learning the hard way. You can't build a real life on a false foundation. Every success they achieved by stepping on you is crumbling. Every relationship they built by trash-talking you is revealing cracks. Every opportunity they manifested by cursing yours is turning sour. Because spiritual theft has a shelf life. It might work for a season, might even work for years, if someone's actively helping you hide from consequences. But eventually, always eventually, the bill comes due. And the interest, the cosmic interest on unpaid spiritual debts, is absolutely devastating. They're not just losing what they took from you. They're losing the illusion that they were ever capable of earning it honestly. They're losing the story they told themselves about being a good person. They're losing the future they thought they were building on your stolen foundation. Let's talk about what's happening in their body, because this isn't just mental or spiritual anymore. This is physical. When you carry the weight of spiritual debt, when you're holding energy that was never meant for you, when you're running from consequences that are actively chasing you, your body knows. Their sleep is destroyed, and not just because of nightmares. Their nervous system is in constant fight or flight, because on some level, they know they're being hunted by truth. Their digestion is a mess because guilt literally sits in the gut. Their skin is breaking out because toxicity has to exit somehow. Their energy is non-existent because they're no longer plugged into your source and they never develop their own. They're aging faster, getting sick more often, feeling more pain, because carrying stolen energy is like carrying poison. It doesn't nourish, it corrodes, and they can't talk about it. That's the isolation that's really killing them. They can't go to their healer anymore. They can't admit to their friends what they did because it would destroy their reputation. They can't confess to their family because it would shatter the image they've carefully constructed. They can't even fully admit it to themselves because their ego can't survive that level of truth. So, they're trapped in this prison of their own making, surrounded by people but completely alone, screaming internally but silent externally, drowning in guilt but unable to reach for help, because help requires honesty, and honesty requires